Reddit, what's the worst thing you've accidentally let slip in conversation? Accidentally told someone in a job interview I'd spent a week in a psychiatric ward. Still got the job. How would you say you deal with challenges? And then BSP. Well, back in the psych ward when someone takes your pudding, you stab them with an imaginary knife. It's not real. But they don't know that. And then BSP. That pretty much describes how things work around here too. You're hired. Accidentally told my mom that my dad planned on divorcing her. I thought it was just understood. That was a rough day after that. I was attending my aunt's funeral and when I was leaving, a son told me to take good care of my parents. Out of habit I said you too. I felt horrible afterwards and still cringe at the memory to this day. I was at my uncle's funeral and my cousin was having a hard time accepting his dad is really gone. He was asking if it was an early April's Fool prank the day before. And that day, he grabbed me, pointed at the corpse, and went, "It doesn't even look like him. He looks different. Maybe it's not even him. Don't you think he looks different?" I'm awkward enough already in most normal situations. And my mind just went blank at this point. The first reply I blurted out was, "That's probably because he is decomposing. That's why he's kinda bloated right now." As part of my job I go to different offices in my company and speak about various work related topics. I am also a member of AA. At a work meeting, where I knew perhaps 5 of the 100 attendees, I stood up and introduced myself saying, "Hi everybody. I'm name, and I'm an alcoholic." Happened first week of college freshman year. In the dorms. Was chatting up this super cute girl with a couple of my newfound friends. I mentioned I had always wanted to play drums. And the girl said she could let me borrow her brother's. Oh. Okay, cool. Conversation keeps going. And something else. Like some mics. And again her brother had one I could borrow have. And then a third thing comes up that was her brother's that I could have, so me, being me, said, "Geez. You're giving all your brother's stuff away. What, did he die?" Ha ha ha. Yep. He did. My large uncle once wiped a turd on my bathroom wall. I think he just stood up and turned and accidentally got it on the wall. Small bathroom, but who knows. In a hoe. His kids came over a week or two later after having been estranged from us for years. Trying to lighten the awkward mood, I told the story about my uncle wiping poop on the wall. How crazy. So gross, who does that? Completely forgetting the relationship between my uncle and cousins. My cousin just goes, "My dad? Wiped poop on the wall?" Couldn't recover, so I just left the room for a while. I think he just stood up and turned and accidentally got it on the wall. Small bathroom. The ol' bee stinger. I was having dinner with my parents and younger sister when I let it slip that Santa wasn't real. I honestly have no idea what I said or implied. But I will always remember the stares that could melt 1,000 candles coming from my parents' eyes when I looked up from my green beans. And then my sister ran from the room, crying. My dad got really drunk on a Saturday night when I was 5. And he came into mine and my brother's room. And he told us that Santa wasn't real. He was mad that he wasn't getting full credit for buying us things. And instead we were grateful to an imaginary person. My favorite thing about it, and why I remember it was a Saturday night, is because he said magic isn't real. If you think there is anything out there in this world, you're an idiot. Now go to bed. Once when I was having the talk with a soon-to-be ex, I dropped a F-king bomb that immediately made me cringe. "I liked you before I got to know you." A friend heard this story and says, "AWW. That's cute. You liked her even before you knew her that well." Nope. It was that I stopped liking her after getting to know her. The soon-to-be ex fully understood the statement upon delivery. I accidentally texted her the specs to her engagement ring while I was trying to send the specs to a family member who was asking after them. So, One of the worst things you can do in basic training is call a female instructor sir. For obvious reasons. There were plenty who did this and were subsequently reamed. Well, I took it a step further and called my male instructor mom. But did you seriously just call me mom? Fortunately for me, I think he got more confused than anything and we had shit to do, so there wasn't time to make my day hell. Good thing we called both genders drill sergeant. Saves us from that particular embarrassment. Although I heard one kid called his DS mom one time. My grandparents separated before I was born. I'm 23 now, and when I was 6 or 7 my grandfather was getting married and I was to be the flower girl. Well, no one told my grandma. I wasn't supposed to know. So one day my family was at her house along with my aunt and uncle. And I mentioned how I couldn't wait to wear a pretty dress for the wedding. My grandma asked who WA getting married. Grampy is. I exclaimed. And that's how she found out. Oops. Not me, but when I was a kid my aunt let it slip that my parents didn't get married until well after I was born because they were forced into it by my grandparents. I was always told they married 18 months before me. They continued to lie for years after that until they divorced and I saw their actual wedding date on the paperwork. You bastard. I remember the dinner where I figured out that my uncle's 50th birthday was 5 to 6 months before my grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary. My mother immediately shushed me. Edit. When I was in high school it was common for your mom to be a response to pretty much any question. One day at school my buddy asked what I was doing that night and I responded your mom. Forgetting that his mom had just died of cancer. I still feel bad 15 years later. Way back when I was dating this girl. I was over at her place waiting for her so we could go out on a date. While I was waiting there her roommate came out of the shower completely naked and walked into her room. Later that evening for some unknown reason I said it is so nice to see that your roommate shaves down there. So what do you think of this restaurant? I always order the musher. It's so nice to see that your roommate shaves down there. I told my stepmom about my foot fetish. I was once trying to score with a girl in the pub after a long relationship breakup. So my speaking to girls skills were a bit rusty. I was a bit nervous so I ended up saying I love f-king dogs instead of I f-king love dogs and didn't notice. She understood that I was a dog rapist and left. If you need me. Not me. But a girl I was dating once had told me she lost her virginity to me. Then, a few months later, we were hanging out with one of her friends and she told a story about a guy who she had slept with and then told her he had it better. So she was either A. cheating on me, B. lied about losing her virginity, or C. making shit up. She immediately realized what she had said and after a long while we apologized and admitted to cheating on me. My best friend and I were talking while watching my kids play outside. I didn't realize they had come up to ask a question and we were talking about some not so good stuff that happened to us in Iraq and he said, "What about the dude you beat to death?" And I said, "It's a lot different than shooting someone." My 12-year-old said, "You've killed someone?" And my oldest smacked him in the arm and said, "At least 2. Pat attention. That was a really awkward conversation to have with them. I never planned on telling them what I did in the army. They knew I fought in the war but didn't know any specifics. Good news out of it though, now neither of them wants to join. I have to admit, that's pretty sharp of the older kid. Oh man. I don't even remember what the game was. But a bunch of people were trying to get me to guess a word by giving me clues. We were playing with a bunch of my wife's college friends. Several days before this game my wife had told me, privately, that one of her male college friends, we'll call him Ace, used a butt plug with a past college GF of his. Not a big deal. But certainly not public information. And not known to Ace's wife, who was present during this game. Well, I had no clue what word they were trying to get me to guess. But someone said Ace's nickname. Full stop. Being the dumbass that I am, I thought of the most recently learned thing I knew about Ace. and responded with I don't know. Butt plug. Dot. I will forever remember the silence that lingered afterward. A guy I worked with for a couple years older brother killed himself. Fast forward a month and he comes to visit the restaurant we worked at together and somebody jokes. Who orders a non-alcoholic beer? What does stupid f-king me say? I would rather kill myself than drink a non-alcoholic beer. Instant shame. Regret. Horror. You name it. I've never felt so terrible saying anything in my life. My friend's dad died about a year ago. A month after it happened. We were drinking. And in my state of inebriation I said, "What you got going on for Father's Day?" He just looked at me. And said. Told my friend's dad he was gay. And was his dad gay? Told my grandma I smoke weed. Edit. Shout out to all y'all saying tell her this point and that point. Y'all are optimistic motherfuckers thinking that people are just hearing your point. Or having met you away from changing their ways. You'll never change. Also edit. I was once super drunk and casually mentioned that I had made a suicide attempt. Being drunk can be the perfect way to let people know what's up without the cringe factor. I casually mentioned that I've done all sorts of drugs. Didn't realize what I said until I said it. Tylenol. Advil. Sudafed. Oh. And the hard stuff. You know, the prescription antibiotics. I got tricked into admitting to one of my best friend's very recent ex that he had cheated on her. I wouldn't have been talking to her at all. But she had a very extreme reaction to the breakup. She locked herself in their apartment and had been threatening to kill herself. At one point. She said, "You know he cheated on me. Right? Apostrophe. I guess. Apostrophe. So he did. Apostrophe. Oops. Correct answer. You know he cheated on me. Right? I guess. So he did. I don't know. I just assumed you knew something I didn't." I asked the wife during an intimate moment if she remembered the lap dance she gave me to a song that came on Spotify. Then went on to describe the lingerie she was wearing and the way her perfume smelled. After getting an "I should murder you and bury your bones in the garden" stare down, I realized that it was not my wife in this memory and my night was ruined. I ruined a surprise birthday party. Was hanging out. Ran into the birthday girl. Wished her happy day of birth and said I'd see her later at so and so's house. Turns out she didn't know. And wasn't supposed to know. I'm a jackass. I accidentally told the future groom that his friends and family were throwing him a surprise wedding shower. In my defense, no one FCKing told me it was a surprise. And I hung out with the guy a lot. Luckily his response was, "I'm not supposed to know about that." Dot. What? It's a surprise shower. I'm not supposed to know about it. But don't worry. I already do. So I watched all smug as they walked in and pretended to be surprised. Then they went up to give a speech and said, "You guys thought you were throwing us a surprise shower. But we actually got married 20 minutes ago. And we're throwing you a surprise reception." Never seen a more baller move. 2 years ago. I was talking in a group with basically the girl of my dreams. And my buddy, who is a football player, started talking about his weight and asked how much us guys weighed. And I'm a cross-country runner, so I'm fairly skinny. I was like, "Oh, I'm really light. Like 115 pounds. I wouldn't be surprised if girl of my dreams weighs more than me." In my mind, I was thinking that since she was the next smallest person there, I would compare myself to her. Because we were both lightweight. But how it came out to her was, I called her fat straight to her face. Backstory. My best friend and I made out once. We realized it made things awkward and never spoke about it again. Fast forward to this last year. I just moved in with my boyfriend and asked if we could have a small housewarming party. My boyfriend asked who I wanted to have over and I said my best friend Mike. BF. Who is Mike? Me. My best friend from high school. BF. Or your best friend you made out with? Me. What? How did you know about that? BF. I was just kidding. He's very sarcastic and loves giving me a hard time about virtually anything. But I couldn't believe I let that one slip. It wasn't that bad. But it was pretty embarrassing to say the least. I accidentally came out as a lesbian to my co-workers because I couldn't resist making a joke. That I knew my stepdad's uncle was doing meth even though I was trusted with that information and specifically told not to say anything about it. And I said it right to my stepdad's face. It was really uncomfortable. Long story short. My best friend was engaged to a girl that I had slept with in the past. I was 18 at the time. We were in our 20s when they were engaged. I had no idea it was her. Keep in mind. Her, him, my wife, and myself hung out all the time. He was my best friend. One night at dinner we were talking about where we all used to work. Wait. You worked there? I worked in the building right next to it. When? Oh wow. So you worked there when I worked there. I once hooked up with a girl named Name from there. Then it all flooded in. Embarrassing. They got over it. But she ended up leaving him anyway over her being stupid. Once when I was a kid my stepmom's niece came over to my house and I mentioned her dad being in prison. Though she was not supposed to know about that, she cried in front of everyone while I was the fault. Nobody told me that was supposed to be secret. Let on to my mother-in-law that my husband and I lived together before marriage. Obviously. She didn't know. Next thing you know, she'll start thinking you guys had sex before marriage too. I'm a teacher. I teach 6 and 7 year olds. Doing a spelling test, the word is father. As in, Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father. Cue most of the children shrieking, is he? I felt a great disturbance in the force. As if millions of voices suddenly cried out in confusion and were suddenly more knowledgeable. About 6 months ago my mother said that my cousin's parents were going to get a divorce but not to tell anyone. I forgot about it, and on Thanksgiving dinner last weekend someone else said it was weird how much the aforementioned parents were fighting. I then said they are getting a divorce after all. The room went silent and my mom just glared at me. The worst part was that Thanksgiving was the first time I was seated at the adult table and it was a test run. Now I have to eat Christmas dinner at the kids' table. Growing up, the running joke in my family was that every time my grandma spent a good amount of money on something, it'd give my grandpa a heart attack. Rewind to 3 years ago, when my grandpa died of a massive heart attack. A few weeks later when I'd flown in for the wake, my grandma mentioned having bought something expensive, a bracelet or something, and I just blurted out, "Jesus, grandma. Grandpa'd have a heart attack." Ever have I felt so terrible or awkward? Luckily my grandma is a hard CNT and just smiled at me, knowing it was just a joke. At a wedding, I met some guy back at the hotel that was a cousin of the bride, and I was on the groom's side. We were in the elevator when I started to talk about how I was banging the bride's sister a while back. As soon as I said it, I realized that the sister was also the guy's cousin. I wasn't about to talk myself out of this one, so as soon as the elevator doors opened I was out of there. One time I was talking to my friend and her boyfriend, who was recovering from heroin use abuse, and I was telling them how great the movie Oslo, the 31st of August is. They asked me what it's about and I said, "Oh yeah, it's about this heroin addict." I realized as the words slipped out of my mouth that I shouldn't have mentioned it. They asked me how it ended and I told them he died. Accidentally let my girlfriend know that the athletic top she loves on me actually belonged to one of my old friends with benefits. Now I can't wear it around her. The word CNT into a conversation in March of 2016 in the car with my mother. A friend was telling me that her boyfriend kept ejaculating within moments of them getting it on. He'd told her that it was because she was so unbelievably hot, but I said I'd heard he was like that with every girl. Don't know why, but I just blurted it out. Like him apparently. When I made a joke to my friend about her pretending to drink on account of her being pregnant, Thing is, I wasn't supposed to know she was pregnant in the first place. Let alone she was pretending to drink, so our mutual best friend ended up taking one on the chin because of me. I let it slip that my dad had cheated on my mom multiple times with 2 different women. One woman who she was close with. And that myself and my younger sister were present during some of these occasions. I was too young to understand what had happened. I just remember the look on her face when I told her. My dad later blamed him getting caught on me and called me a bitch and every other name in the book. My parents got divorced. I'm not on speaking terms with my father.